Hello everyone. So today I'm going to be talking about a new foundation from a company called Youthforia and how it has performed on my own mature and dry and sensitive skin. So this is a foundation that is designed to be particularly good for skin to the point where they encourage people to not worry about whether or not they sleep in it or not. And it does contain 5 different kinds of hyaluronic acid, and it also includes some prickly pear extract. So those are ingredients that are particularly good for my skin. On the other hand, this foundation does seem to be designed for people that are considerably younger than I am, such as 35 or younger. And so my question was whether or not this would be appropriate for me and whether it would be appropriate, particularly when it comes to the fine lines and other texture issues that I have in my face. So I do feel that I managed to make this work, but it was a little bit of a challenge. So I will talk to you a little bit about what I did with it and my experiences with it in this video. So first, a little bit of information about me. I'm 59 years old and I do have dry and very sensitive skin. And I have never had any kind of cosmetic procedures like injections or surgery, and I don't intend to do that. So I do have some signs of aging, like wrinkles on my face. And over the past 3 years, I have tried more than 1,000 makeup products, so I have a good basis of comparison for everything that I talk about on this channel. I have found that there are certain ingredients that do consistently irritate my skin, and that tend to be the ingredients that dermatologists suggest should be irritating. So I don't talk about products with those ingredients on this channel at all. So now a little bit of information about Youthforia. So this is a company that is headed up by a woman named Fiona Ko-Chan, who graduated from Dartmouth in 2013 and then worked in business development for a software company. And during the pandemic, she began working on a line of skincare and makeup products. And she said that she usually didn't wear much makeup because it was irritating to her skin. So she was really focused on the idea that makeup should be just as good as skincare in terms of not irritating your skin and being healthy for it. And she went on the program Shark Tank and she won $400,000, and so she started up the company in 2021. The first product that was launched from this company was a color changing blush, and this went fairly viral on TikTok and made a fair amount of money, so then they had the ability to continue on and to launch some other products. And so far, the products that they have are these color-changing blush, some regular blush colors, a setting spray, a primer, a face wash, a few lip glosses, and this foundation line. And in looking at the ingredients, I do think that all of these look like they have ingredients that are pretty clean and that I would be interested in trying. So hopefully I can pick up the other products fairly soon and do another video on this company. This company does seem to be doing pretty well, and it is expanding in terms of its retail base pretty quickly. So now you can purchase the product from the website and from Amazon, and they also are in Credo, Revolve, Ulta, and JCPenney. And the name of the company, Youthforia, was invented apparently by the head of the company's husband, and she says it refers to this emotion when you're really happy in your adult life and you're reminded of your favorite childhood memories. I think that makeup traditionally has been something that you use to cover things up, whereas when you're really young and you want to wear makeup for the first time, it's all about having fun and trying new things. So I do not see anything at all on the website that suggests that this company is very interested in people who are over 35 years old. The founder describes the audience as either people who love makeup and will try anything new, or people who have sensitive skin and who have problems tolerating other makeup brands. And I kind of feel like the prices across the board are pretty high for a youth-oriented brand, but they do seem to be doing pretty well so far as I can tell. And so as for the foundation, again, this is designed to be good enough for your skin that you can sleep in it regularly, and that is how they tested it, by having study participants sleep in the product every day for 28 days and then seeing how they did with it. And the description of the product from the website, it says weightless medium coverage that's formulated with luxurious texturizing ingredients packed with 88% skincare actives, and a patented tannin complex allows the foundation to melt into the skin for a glass skin finish, all while controlling sebum for an effortless, everyday, long-lasting wear. So again, the idea that this foundation is controlling oil production is consistent with their apparent target market of people who are younger than 35. But they do say that this product should be appropriate for all different skin types, including dry skin and oily skin. So there is some potential there that it might be appropriate for my own skin. So in terms of the ingredients, it does say that there's these 5 different types of sodium hyaluronate or hyaluronic acid. So I think that the idea with this is that it's penetrating to different levels of the skin in terms of hydrating it. And coffee extract, probably they're talking here about caffeine, which tends to be depuffing and an antioxidant. And it is silicone-free, fragrance-free, vegan, and cruelty-free. So in terms of the website, I do see that almost all the pictures that I see on the website are of people that are much younger than I am. In terms of the ingredients, my skin does get along really, really well with hyaluronic acid and with the prickly pear extract. And I think that the real question here is whether or not the product will emphasize my wrinkles, because there are many products on the market that do cause problems with that and that do make my wrinkles look considerably worse, which is the opposite thing that I want to be having happen as a result of using a foundation or any makeup product. This product is made in Korea, so I think there's an increasing number of really good products that are made in Korea. And one of my very favorite products, which is the foundation from House Labs, is also from Korea, but that one does have silicones in it. In terms of the usage life, they are saying that it just has a 6-month usage life, so this is really on the short side. Most foundations do have a year usage life after you open the bottle. It is available in 15 shades, and considering that this is offering more like a medium coverage right out of the bottle, 15 shades is really on the very skimpy side. So I think if you have a foundation with that kind of coverage level and you're only offering 15 shades, then what you are doing is basically saying that there are going to be some people in the market that are not going to be having a shade that's going to match their skin, and so the question is who those people are going to be. And in this case, they only introduced 4 shades for people who have medium deep or deep skin. The darkest shade, it shows pictures of models with really dark skin, but there was a TikTok video that came out a month or 2 ago that suggests that people who have really dark skin are not going to be able to wear it. And there was an article on NBC News that really talked about this, so this controversy did get some publicity. In general, the idea that companies are not making shades for people with darker skin tones has become a real hot button issue, and I think that that is really magnified for a product that is targeting young people. Now, I did see an interview with the founder on CBS Mornings with Gayle King, who suggested that the foundation line was designed to be inclusive, but not everyone seems to agree with this. I did see an article in Allure magazine from a woman who does have quite dark skin, and she said that she was really concerned when she saw the color out of the bottle, but then when she blended it into her skin, that it did work for her, and supposedly these foundation shades are designed to be more flexible than you would think. Now, whether or not I trust what Allure is saying, I'm not absolutely sure, because I do know that Allure never really says anything negative about any products. They're really designed to make the advertisers happy. But I do think that if this woman in the picture says that it worked for her skin, then it probably did. So maybe it's a little bit more flexible than some people will say, but there certainly have been at least a few people with darker skin that are saying that there's not a shade for them. So as someone with a marketing background, as I have, I think that it is very difficult for a small upstart company to launch a whole lot of shades in the way that, say, Fenty or House Labs has. You really need to have a huge amount of investment behind that, because each shade you're going to have a minimum number of bottles that you're going to be able to buy. And if you have a foundation that has a short shelf life because it's a cleaner product, then you may not be able to sell all those products through. And if you can't sell products through, then that's a good way to bankrupt your little company. So there are a lot of companies that are offering a lot of different shades. For instance, Glossier, which was also really harshly criticized in the past for not offering enough dark shades, or for, well, any dark shades. They have recently introduced a new foundation, and they had 32 shades, and the majority of those were for people with medium to dark skin tones. So I think if I were in charge of a company like Youthforia now, you can't really say, well, we're going to just introduce a few shades mostly for people with lighter skin tones, and then later on we're going to introduce the dark ones. That seems to be making people very, very mad. I think that if I were doing it, I might actually consider starting out with just introducing a lot of good shades for people with darker skin tones and seeing how it goes, and then expanding it to people with lighter skin tones. I think that would go over a lot better. I also noticed at one point that Evan Healy, which has a little foundation, was offering the darker skin tones at a discount of like 50%, and then the lighter skin tones at the regular price. And I think that's not a bad idea, because you have to order a certain number of products in a particular shade, and if you can't sell them through really easily, then offering them at a lower margin might not be a bad strategy, and might not actually make people really happy with you. And I think that maybe you could just make the darker shades available through your website rather than trying to get retailers to commit all of that space to shades that might not be selling out really fast. So in terms of my own experiences with the shades, my own skin tends to be right on the border between being fair and light. And it also seems to be kind of a peachy color, so it's neutral, but it's more because it has a lot of pink in it and also a lot of yellow in it. So when I see foundation lines where they say that there's a peach, usually that does work really, really well for me. Now in this case, I did see that somebody said that they thought that this foundation line ran warm. So I decided to buy the shade called 230, which is called Neutral with Cool Undertones. And I think that even though it is called cool, it actually looks a little bit yellower than my skin. So I don't have the best light today, but I will show you this and you can see if you think it's the same color as my back of my hand, or if I think it's a little bit yellower. However, when I put it on my skin, I do think that it blended in very nicely, even when I put quite a bit of it on. So I do think that maybe there is some justification for them to say that it's designed to kind of blend into your skin. And I do think that my experience with it is that it didn't look like a wrong match on my face, even though I was kind of concerned about it before I put it on. So again, I do have skin that's more on the neutral or peach side. So for people that really do have pink skin, I think that getting a really good match might be a little bit more difficult with this line than with some others, because it does seem to be accurate that it runs a little bit yellow. Now the other issue that I see here is that the photos in the models really do not seem to be informative at all in terms of helping people to pick the right shades. So it looks like they took the pictures of the models with harsh studio lighting. So most of those models look like their skin tones are pretty much the same, and especially I'm not being able to detect the undertones. So I wouldn't rely on those photos, but they do say that they have 100% shade matching satisfaction guarantee. So hopefully if you buy one of these and it doesn't work out for you, that you can send it back. Now, it would be great if these products were available in Ulta, so you could actually go in and look at them. But so far, in terms of the Ultas in my area, even the large ones, they don't seem to be stocking this product, at least not yet. So now let's talk about my own experiences with the product. So first of all, what they are suggesting is that if you want light coverage, then you should use 1 pump, or if you want medium coverage, then you could use 2 pumps for your whole face. What I found is that immediately, even if I just used 1 pump, that this provided me with a considerable amount of coverage, more what I would consider to be medium coverage, and that it did emphasize my wrinkles a whole lot and make them look a lot worse, and that it also actually made my pores look worse. Now, they are saying that this is supposed to help pores look better, but I certainly felt like it made my pores look worse, and I also think that it looked quite patchy, especially in areas like around my nose. So I had areas here that it was really very difficult for me to blend in entirely, no matter how much effort I put into using my finger or brush. So usually what I do when I put on makeup as my default is that I will put it on with my fingers, and that I will then go over with a stiff brush to try to remove the excess and buff it into my skin. And I feel like for this particular foundation, regardless of whether or not I was using 1 pump or 1.5 pumps, I don't think I ever managed to get a full 2 pumps on my skin. That would have been kind of crazy. No matter how much of the foundation I put on my skin and no matter how much I buffed it in, it definitely looked like it was very patchy and very highly emphasizing my wrinkles. Now, I did find that it looked considerably better after about 4 or 5 hours on my skin. At least it didn't look quite as bad in terms of emphasizing my wrinkles. So I think eventually this does sort of sink into the skin, and that while it's on the surface, it looks a lot worse in terms of those issues. So there are some foundations that I have used that I do need to use a sponge with, and that's really the only way that I can make them work. So I'm thinking, for instance, about the RMS Creme foundation, and this is a foundation that I actually do really like, and that if I really wanted to wear full coverage makeup or even like stage makeup, that would be the one that I would choose. But the only way that I can really get this to work is to put it on with a sponge, or else put it on with my fingers and then go over it with a damp sponge, because otherwise it takes a very, very long time to sink into the skin. So I thought that I would try a sponge with this. Now, a sponge is not something that I usually use that much, because the issue with sponges for me is that after I use them once, no matter how much I try to dry them out or wash them off, they really feel yucky to me after that. So I feel like there's bacteria or mold or something that I'm sensitive to, and I just don't want to use that on my face anymore. And even an inexpensive sponge is pretty expensive to use if you're only going to use it once. So I did buy a few little sponges from Sephora that cost like $2 each, and so I decided to use one of those to go over my makeup. So what you can see here, I'm taking the damp sponge and then just lightly going over my makeup, which is removing any excess and kind of setting it into place. And I do think that it looks somewhat better when I use the sponge, even if I'm using, the full 1.5 pumps. I still don't think that it's my favorite makeup, but I do think it looks better. Now, for most products, that would have been it for me, and I would have said, well, this is not really a good product for me, and it probably would be fine if I didn't have so many wrinkles on my face. But in this case, I was really hesitant to give up on it, because I really do think it felt really, really good on my skin, and probably better than almost any other foundation that I've tried. I'm saying almost because there was one foundation that was from a company called Vapor that is no longer in business, and they did have a liquid foundation that I used to really like. But other than that, I think that there are some foundations out there that are not irritating for my skin, but I feel like this one is actually providing some skincare benefits. So I think that what they are saying in terms of the main benefit, that it's actually accurate, and I would like to be able to use a product like this on my face, as long as it's not making my face look worse. I certainly am not going to do that. So then I decided that I would try a few more things. So I decided to try a primer. Now, they are suggesting that their primer is very, very helpful with this product, and I would like to get a hold of that primer and give it a try. But I don't have it yet, and so I thought that I would think about what other primers I do have. So I don't think that this would be really good with the silicone-based, and I think that the real point of this product is that it doesn't have silicone in it, and that it's that's one of the reasons that it is so good for the skin. So I thought about which other primers I have. And the one that I usually use is actually labeled as a foundation, but I use it only as a primer. And this is from Jane Iredale. This is called Hydro Pure. And it is a serum foundation. It actually does have a lot of sodium hyaluronate in it also. And it has these little beads of pigment in it, but they really provide almost no coverage on the skin. And I do feel like my skin has at least not been irritated with this, and all the other foundations that I've put over it have worked pretty well. And I think that one of the things that I do like about this product is that this serum kind of provides a little bit of filling into my wrinkles. So therefore if I put a foundation over it that does have a lot of pigment in it, that it doesn't have as much of a chance to sink into those wrinkles and make them look worse. So I put on the Jane Iredale product first, and then I put on a layer of the Youthforia product, and then I use the sponge over it. And I do think that that looks somewhat better, but I also think that putting down the Jane Iredale primer kind of negates the benefits of having the Youthforia foundation be so good, because it's really not getting anywhere close to the skin because it's providing that barrier on the skin. So I think that if you're determined to make this foundation work and it's the foundation that you happen to have, then putting a primer like this down would be make it work for me and not make it look as wrinkly. But on the other hand, personally, I just don't see myself wanting to use the foundation that much if it's not going to be actually good for my skin. So eventually I concluded the same thing that I have realized numerous times in the past, which is that if a foundation has silicone in it, then there is a possibility that I will be able to do okay with it in terms of it looking okay on my face, even if it is offering medium coverage. But that if a foundation doesn't have silicone in it, I think it's going to be very, very unlikely that it's going to look okay on my face if it's not offering light coverage. That once you get that much coverage on the face, it just, all those pigments just sink right into those wrinkles and make them look a lot worse. So what I decided to give a try doing is to mix the Youthforia product with some moisturizer. So a moisturizer that I tend to use as my standby is from the Outset. This is called the Nourishing Squalane Daily Moisturizer. So this has squalane in it and a few other good ingredients for my face. And I do think that this mixes quite well with foundations. It also performs well under foundations. So therefore, I think this is my initial try in terms of mixing this up and then putting the mixture on my face. So I mostly tried doing it half and half, where I was using half the Youthforia and half of the Outset moisturizer. And I think that this resulted in a foundation that was very similar to many of the light coverage foundations that I have used, and I think it worked much, much better. So that is what I'm wearing on my face now, and you can see me putting that on in the video footage. So after I mixed it with the moisturizer, I actually have been really enjoying this product. I do think that it's been very good for my face, really better than pretty much any of the other foundations that I have used. And I do think that maybe because of all that hyaluronic acid in it, it gives my face kind of a glow that I don't feel like I usually see in most of the other foundations that I'm using, and my face looks a little bit softer, and I feel like the reddishness of it, and my face was pretty red at the beginning of today, that the reddishness has been cut a little bit without my needing to put anything else on. I did use a concealer under my eyes and around my nose, and in other little spots on my face where I saw some extra redness, but I really needed to use less concealer than usual. And I think that my skin just has a pretty glowy and kind of a little bit of a plumped up look. So I'm really happy with that. And I have just done this 2 or 3 times so far, but I am feeling optimistic enough about it that I think that this might be something that I would consider using fairly regularly in the future. So I think that many people that are under 35, they really are wanting to put more coverage on their whole face because they are struggling with issues like acne. But for people who are older, I think that using a concealer on a spot basis and then using really just a light foundation, or many times I use no foundation at all. But I think that the light foundation like this actually does have some benefits for me, even when I'm just using a concealer. And if Youthforia were to release a foundation just like this, but without quite so much pigment in it, then I would probably go ahead and buy this. But it really takes almost no effort to mix this with a moisturizer and then put it on that way. So I think that I should be able to get some good use out of this bottle. So now let's talk about some of the other foundations that I have tried that I think are somewhat similar to this one. So what we're really talking about here is foundations that don't have silicone in them. I think that if you get into foundations with silicone, that you're in a totally different mindset and a different space. So let's just focus on the ones that don't have silicones in them. And I think that probably the foundation that I have tried that is the most direct competitor for the Youthforia foundation is this one from Glossier, which I mentioned before. So this is a medium coverage foundation. This one has, I think, some squalane in it and some other skin benefits in it. It does have some oil in it, so it might be the case that if you really have acne, maybe this wouldn't be as good for you as the Youthforia. And I think that this has not irritated my skin, but I don't feel like it's actually been as beneficial for my skin as the Youthforia. But in terms of what it looks like when I put it on my skin, it actually looks very similar when I put it on at full strength. And then when I used a half and half with moisturizer, I thought that it looked almost identical. Now my skin did seem to like the Youthforia better, so I'm going to stick with this one. But I thought that it was very interesting to try thinning down the Glossier foundation because it did work a lot better for me than I suggested that it worked in the video when I was only using it at full strength. And another foundation that I think is somewhat similar to these is the Kosas Revealer foundation. So this is a foundation that does have some hyaluronic acid in it and squalane and some other skin improving ingredients. And my skin does pretty well with this. I think this one is not as high coverage as the Youthforia product. It is more like what the Youthforia product would be if I used 1/3 moisturizer and 2/3 of the foundation is the mixture. So it's kind of in between what I consider to be a skin tint that's ideal for me. It's a little bit heavier. I think in the future, if I use this product again, I might thin it down with some moisturizer. But on the whole, as foundations go, especially ones with SPF in them, I have liked this one. And I think that if you like this one, that you might also be interested in the Youthforia one. A couple of other relatively high coverage foundations that do not include silicones and I think are fairly good for the skin and that perform somewhat similarly to the Youthforia product. The NARS Light Reflecting Foundation and the RMS Re-Evolve Liquid Foundation. Neither of those include silicones. Both of those have pretty good ingredient lists. I don't feel like either of those has been irritating to me. But I don't think that either of those are foundations that I would be inclined to wear unless I really needed coverage. They're not ones that I would be saying, gee, this is really good for my skin. What can I do to make this work for me? They're more foundations that I'm happy that they're not irritating my skin, but I don't feel like they've been really great for it either. So I do think, as I said, that if I had issues on my skin and I really needed a lot of coverage, that the one that I would really be thinking about is the RMS Creme Foundation. Once I get it on there and once I use the damp sponge, I think it actually looks really nice. It doesn't emphasize my wrinkles. There is a lot of pigment in it, but it certainly is a foundation with a lot of oils in it, so that isn't really competing with the Youthforia one because that one doesn't have any oil in it at all. Another product that I feel has been somewhat similar is from Caliray, and it is called the Caliray Free Dreaming Lightweight Skin Tint. Now again, I think that this foundation is quite high coverage. It's not as high coverage as the Youthforia one. I think it's more like the Kosas. And I think that my skin didn't do too badly with it in terms of how it felt on my skin, but I do think that the Youthforia one is considerably better in terms of both how it feels on my skin and also how it looks on my skin. I don't feel like The Calorie one has as many good ingredients in it. It does have the prickly pear in it, but it doesn't have sodium hyaluronate in it or anything like that. And it's not really giving me the glow that I think you can see on my face. Just here. So now if we move into foundations that are more at the level of coverage that the Youthforia one is after I dilute it down, one of those would be the Typology one. And this one again does have squalane in it. It has some vitamin C in it and some aloe. So I use this fairly frequently and I think it looks nice on my skin. And I think it feels good on my skin, so it's one of my favorite foundations to use right out of the bottle. But I need to use the Youthforia some more, but I think that one might be better. And then if you're looking for something that is actually a really good value and that has performed surprisingly well to me. This one is the Pacifica Kind Tint, which is only $14. It's providing lighter coverage. It's available only in 12 shades, but you're not getting that much coverage from this one. And so it doesn't need to have as many shades. And I think this one's really underrated, especially in terms of how it feels on my skin. So it has squalane, sodium hyaluronate, a number of higher quality oils, so it does provide some moisturizing benefits. And it has vitamin C, and then it has a fermented ingredient in it. And I have always found that when I put this on my skin, it really feels good. And I think that it's something that may be a little bit better for my skin than not using it at all. And I think it looks pretty good. I don't think it is as good as the Youthforia when I dilute it in terms of how it looks on my skin or in terms of how it feels on my skin. But it is a lot less expensive, and I do think it's been really highly overlooked in the marketplace, and that if you're interested in trying something that is sort of more casual and that is certainly a good value, that this would be something that you might want to pick up. So what I feel like when I look at these foundations is that many of them contain squalane rather than sodium hyaluronate, and I think that both of these are ingredients that my own skin does really, really well with. Now, squalane is more like an oil, and so it is described as an emollient, and it's really super hydrating and regulating oil production, whereas the sodium hyaluronate, it's described as a humectant that's giving a plumping effect like a sponge. So I do think that right now my skin is actually looking better than it usually does, not just in terms of the coverage, but also in terms of the glow, and also maybe even in terms of like the plumpness of it. And I am giving some of that credit to the Youthforia foundation. So I'm kind of motivated to keep using it. So thank you very much for watching all the way to the end of the video. And I would be really interested in finding out which foundations have worked best for you so far. So if you would share that in the comments, I would really appreciate it. In addition, I am getting close to 1,000 subscribers. And when I do that, I will actually be monetized by YouTube. So I'm kind of excited about that. So if you haven't subscribed to the channel yet, then please go ahead and do that. And meanwhile, Coco and I love you very much and wish you a Merry Christmas. So thanks very much for watching. Goodbye.
La